seems as though y'all enjoy this little video series and the interactive quiz element. So we're back at it again with another Twisted Would You Rather. Just like last time, all of the character matchups have been selected by RNG, but unlike last time, we've got 10 Octavinelle themed questions this go around. During the gauntlet, you'll have the option to participate in an interactive quiz by clicking on the box near the description and then selecting the answer you desire. While there are no wrong answers in this type of thing, the quiz module requires one, so I've set it to all of my picks, so those will show up as correct. Therefore, you can also try to guess who I went with if you like, or you can just pick your picks, or you can ignore the quiz module altogether and list your picks in the comment section down below. Once all of the questions have been asked, I'll be going through my picks and rationales, but for now, we should start with our very first question. Would you rather sign a contract alongside Rook or Trey? Would you rather work a shift at Mostro Lounge with Rook or Sebek? Would you rather track down some debtors with Jamil or Riddle? Would you rather find a lost source scent to balance the lounge's ledger with Jack or Malleus? Would you rather convince other students they need Azul's study guide with Vil or Kalim? Would you rather explore an underwater shipwreck with Floyd or Kalim? Would you rather visit the Atlantica Memorial Museum with Grim or Jamil? Would you rather breach your contract and become an enemy with Apple or Cater? Would you rather craft a water-breathing potion with Azul or Riddle? Would you rather cook up some new menu items with Jade or Idia? Have you locked in your choices? Are you satisfied with them? If so, then let's compare notes. But quickly, before we do, I must mention that I'll be passively mentioning some EN server story content, as well as a tiny bit of anime content, so there will be some spoilers ahead. Now then, our first question was, would you rather sign a contract alongside Rook or Trey? Now, I don't know if I'm going halvesies with these individuals, or if I invited them along for moral support, kind of like how Jack was in Book 3. But I'm gonna assume the latter because I don't trust either of these two in a joint contract. Trey is much too passive and Rook is Rook, so he could do well, or he could purposefully mess us up to see the beauty of our ruin. On top of all of that, I don't see either of them wanting something enough to forego the effort of getting that thing on their own, so I have no idea why they would be signing a contract to begin with. Maybe Trey is trying to get someone out of trouble, but I doubt that he cares that much about his dorm mates since he even admits as much about Riddle in his labware vignette. Rook taking the easy way out would be the highest form of sacrilege given Vil's thoughts on the matter, so it'd have to be a very dramatic situation for him to sign the scroll. Therefore, if they were merely coming with me for moral support, then I'd rather have Rook than Trey because I think Trey would just kind of let it happen, whereas Rook would let it happen, but with flair. I also think the Huntsman is a bit of a double edged sword because while he would encourage me to follow my heart, he also has a sharp enough eye to notice subtle shifts in Azul's body language, or that teeny tiny fine print at the bottom of the contract. And I think he would inform me of at least the latter so that I could make the best decision possible in the moment. Will the footnote matter? Will I go forth and seize that which my heart desires regardless of the consequences? A wondrous display such as this requires all the cards to be on the table, none? And so I would hope that Rook would assist me with at least this. I also think he'd be much more entertaining of a partner who can catch the trio off guard with his charisma too, so that could help me get a foothold during the negotiations. Perhaps I can even squeeze a bit more mileage out of the deal than I was anticipating with the Huntsman's help. Perhaps. Our next question was, would you rather work a shift at Mastro Lounge with Rook or Sebek? Either of these guys would be entertaining, but for different reasons. As previously discussed, Rook is a charismatic little bean, and we already kind of know what a shift at the lounge looks like for him due to one of the Heartstable anime's ending shorts. And if I was working a shift like that, I think I'd have a fun time. However, Sebek has abysmal people skills if Sam New Year's Sale is anything to go by, and that could lead to an entirely different kind of entertainment if my ears could manage it. So I'm a little torn between the two experiences. Do I go with something familiar that's likely to be fun, or do I go into the unknown and face whatever may lay ahead? Familiar is good. I do think it'd be enjoyable to watch Sebek slowly learn customer service skills, but it would make the shift at the lounge a bit too awkward, I think, versus what I already know to be true for Rook. The ending short is one of my faves from Season 1, which does require an inspired Floyd to proceed as it does, but even without the moody eel, I think Rook would still be a fun work buddy. Perhaps he'll still pressure folks into drinking more drinks. Perhaps his sharp sight will let him help out with other folks' tables, including mine, since he'll be more aware of the space and the people within it. It'd be a more pleasant overall experience, I think, so I'll be sticking with Rook once again. Our next question was, would you rather track down some debtors with Jamil or Riddle? My goodness, we have another tough matchup. Jamil is really good at manipulating people, so I have no doubt that he'd be able to weasel information out of the debtors' friends to help us track them down. It'd be subtle, smooth, delicate, classic enforcer type stuff. Riddle, on the other hand, would blaze a trail to the contract breakers without looking back, a bold, exciting approach to this activity. There are pros and cons to both sides, so I think it really depends on your strengths and weaknesses here, or your favorite characters. But for me, I think I'm gonna go with Riddle here. Jamil is good at this sort of thing, I'm sure, but he also has 1,001 other problems that he needs to deal with. And if he's tracking down debtors for Azul, he's going to have to interact with Azul, which is something he's less than happy doing. Although in 7.5 the two seem to be getting along a little better, for the majority of the story, Jamil's avoided the octopus, so I'd hate to force the two together. Or would I? Because that could lead to some other shenanigans. No, I'm sparing the snake, and I'm still going with Riddle. In my idealized scenario, the debtors are Heartstable students, so even if Riddle doesn't want to do Azul's dirty work for him, he will still enforce the rules. And if I happened to witness a rule-breaking incident, why, I just have to report it to the house warden, no? Then I could ask to see the students just to be sure it was them, because I'd feel terrible if it was a case of mistaken identity. So could you please lead me to them? I swear I'm only doing this out of the kindness of my heart. I don't wish for them to be punished. I just think that this particular rule should be upheld, and I'm saddened by their actions. I'm sure Riddle is smart enough to sniff out my underlying motives. However, he probably also understands the debtors getting their comeuppance since he doesn't jump to Ace and Deuce's aid in Book 3, meaning I've got a pretty good chance of convincing him all the same. When we get to the debtors, I can claim I mistook them for someone else, someone with a Scarabia armband. Now that I think about it, I do get those two confused. But since I'm here, how about that contract, huh? Riddle might even want to punish them for being dumb enough to sign a contract anyways, and that could be fun to witness as well. Our next question was, would you rather find a lost sourcent to balance the lounge's ledger with Jack or Malleus? This is a scenario inspired by the manga anthology, and I think it would be so incredibly funny to see Malleus, of all people, looking under couch cushions for a coin. Bro really needs to get out more and have normal experiences, like looking for loose change, and this scenario would be the perfect opportunity to broaden his horizons. We could even make it a game where he's not allowed to use magic and therefore has to go about searching for the missing coin the old-fashioned way. Whoever finds it first has to buy the other person ice cream. Although my mental images did not account for Malleus being Fey and therefore having super speed and strength, so he could probably find the coin really quickly, meaning I'm gonna have to buy him some ice cream, but that's a small price to pay to give him a moment like this. Jack would likely be dependable and willing to engage in a sort of contest to find the coin, so I don't think that he's a bad pick here either. I'm just a little more biased towards the dragon and perhaps even craving some ice cream myself, so I'm going to stand by my pick. Our next question was, would you rather convince other students they need Azul's study guide with Vil or Kaleem? When the wheel landed on Vil, I prayed so hard for it to give me someone who would be more willing to go along with this plot because I cannot imagine Vil being okay doing this sort of dirty work on Azul's behalf. Yes, the study guides are in fact guides, not test answers, so you still do have to study with them and work hard to get those better grades. However, needing the study guide also means that you've been slacking off, which is something that Vil detests. And you are most likely slacking off to the point where you needed to put your magic up as collateral for this rather than just buckling down and doing the work yourself. And Vil called you a spudling. Tisk tisk. Thankfully, my prayers were answered, so I'm going with Kaleem for this activity. Kaleem is too happy, too trusting, and that makes him the perfect candidate to help Azul out. Kaleem isn't going to ask tricky questions. In fact, he might even sign up for the study guides himself, giving Azul an exorbitant amount of money in exchange for the papers, only to hand them out to passers-by for free. This would throw a wrench in Azul's whole plot, so he probably wouldn't bite for this particular deal. However, if the price was right, he would be tempted. And then Kaleem and I could distribute the study guides across the school like flyers for a concert, telling people all sorts of good things about Azul and how he wanted to help, and if you have any questions, you can go to him because he'll totally love to help you. It's a decent enough marketing, I think, even if it is a little counterproductive to Azul's larger plot. So it's what I would like to do, given the choice. Our next question was, would you rather explore an underwater shipwreck with Floyd or Kaleem? The wheel blessed me yet again with two wonderful boys for this wonderful adventure, and I'm going to have to go with the dangerous one because it just is the vibe, you know? Floyd and shipwrecks are one and the same in my mind. Not because Floyd is a wreck, but because the guy gets associated with sharks so often, and when I think of sharks, I think of shipwrecks. Maybe this is due to The Little Mermaid, maybe it's a universal aesthetic, I don't really know. But I do know that Floyd has explored shipwrecks before, so he could lead me around easily enough. He may also try to play some pranks on me, but given that I am not Merfolk, if something serious were to happen, I think Floyd would be more reliable in the water than Kaleem. Kaleem is sweet, and he could probably get us to the shipwreck on a yacht, but have all sorts of dive instructors and other folks around us to help. But we absolutely would get treated with kid gloves to ensure nothing bad happened to Kaleem, and that sort of restrictive an atmosphere is just not for me. Or, alternatively, someone might think it'd be a great time to pin his murder on someone like myself, so that their child can climb into his place and I would rather not have him die or deal with the resulting drama. Like luxury cruise, sign me up, but if you're gonna try to put me in floaties, I'm gonna kick up a fuss. Try and frame me for murder and I'm gonna have to get a dragon involved, and none of us want that, right? Floyd has the potential to be much cooler, but the overall experience will still be more fun, more thrilling. And if there's a chance I'm gonna see a shark, I'd much rather have someone around who can deal with the threat, so it's the eel all the way. Our next question was, would you rather visit the Atlantica Memorial Museum with Grimm or Jamil? I love visiting museums, but I also like to enjoy them at my own pace, so I think I have to go with Jamil here. Grimm is cute, I love him dearly, but he is by all accounts a toddler, and youngsters tend to get uppity. Sure, all the new things will distract him for a bit, but I don't think I'd be able to really absorb or learn about mer culture with Grimm bouncing around. However, with Jamil, we could both take our time and enjoy the space. I have no idea if Jamil would even be interested in this sort of thing. He probably is with museums generically, but I don't know that he'd be super excited about this specific museum. Either way, he would be respectful and courteous, and if this was a little break from Kaleem, all the better. He could always blame his tardiness to return on me, since I'd be completely absorbed in the exhibits, and I would happily let him if it meant I could explore the museum in relative peace. Given that the sea is so different from the desert, I can also imagine Jamil being interested in specific topics once he was there, comparing and contrasting land culture as well as desert culture to life under the sea. An educational experience all around. Our next question was, would you rather breach your contract and become an anemone with Apple or Cater? I do not even have words for this one, as much as I do my best to avoid Azul's glittering golden papers. He 100% would get me at some point, and if I'm gonna go down, then Cater is coming with me. Apple has enough going on with his and Ville's headbutting, so I don't really want to bug him, even though he'd likely be a much more easier target to convince to take a deal. So Cater is the only guy left. I do enjoy the delightful irony of Cater being collarless his entire Night Raven career, only to get an anemone in his junior year due to some sort of silly arrangement. I don't even know what our contract would have been for, to be honest, or if Cater even actually signed one. Now that I think about it, it's much more likely that Cater would make or buy an anemone headband that he could wear in solidarity with me instead of actually signing a contract to get a real anemone on his head. Why would he do this? I have no idea. To mock me, maybe? To support me, perhaps? To take Magicam pics? Maybe it was a sponsorship and he wants to put the two of us side by side so people can see how lifelike the accessory is. I think any one of those cases is a little bit more realistic than him failing his contractual duties, but somehow, some way, we are going to be twinning. Our next question was, would you rather craft a water-breathing potion with Azul or Riddle? Our two smarty pants boys who are wickedly good at potion crafting. My, the wheel has spoiled us with this choice. Since I've already picked Riddle for something else, and because Azul is my favorite leech twin, I'm going to have to pick him here. Seriously though, I'm quite curious about Azul's formulation process and how he works. We get to see a little bit of his octopus nature spill over into his everyday tasks in his sleepwear vignette, so I'm legitimately curious if he's the same way when making potions. Does he have his mind cued into 3 different steps at once, or is he more streamlined and focused? I just think it would be fascinating to see, and maybe after our water-breathing potion we could wring out an eel or 2 for some special moisturizer, which would also be fun, methinks. Even if we didn't have time and could only make the 1 potion, it would still be fun, and the fruit of our labor would be top quality. Azul guarantees it with all of his potions, right? So this one likely wouldn't be any different. And our last question was, would you rather cook up some new menu items with Jade or Edea? This is another easy choice for me, but I do have to give Edea credit where credit is due, since he does a fantastic job of working all the complex kitchen machinery in Popcorn Panic, and while doing so, cooks up some fantastic looking food. So he is capable of cooking, and he can cook well enough, so I wouldn't blame anyone for choosing him. But he's up against an eel, and that's a contest that he cannot win, so I'm going with Jade here. He's quite capable in the kitchen and does some of the cooking for the lounge anyways, so it's much more likely for him to be the one of the folks crafting new recipes and trying out new dishes. We could even work on some mushroom ones together because I've always been interested in trying to make or eat chanterelle ice cream. It apparently has a very delicate flavor that works well for sweets, and if we could convince Azul to introduce it as a dessert, then folks might be more accepting of other mushroom-related dishes, right? Maybe we could even get him to try some less savory options, like pineapple and pea shoot pasta. That could be fun, and it'd only be a slight waste of ingredients. The whole process would be subtly chaotic, but overall fun. And it's a good thing this is our last question of the day because now I'm hungry. Did y'all agree with my picks or disagree? Just how similar were we? And if you picked different folks, let me know why down below. I'd also love it if y'all could spare a moment to give a little feedback on the quiz function as well as this video format. But if comments aren't your thing, you could always like and subscribe instead to show your support. And of course, before you go, I just have to remind you that you're amazing and I hope you have a wonderful day.